Father abandons them as young boys. They find a horse and turn their cabin into a paradise. Jason woke to the sound of wind beating against the cabin window. It was 5 in the morning on a June Tuesday, and something felt different. The silence was too heavy, as if the house itself was holding its breath. He got up slowly, feeling the cold wooden floor under his bare feet, and went to his father's room. The door was open, the bed empty, the dresser drawers all pulled out and rummaged through. Jason felt his heart race as he ran to the living room. The small safe under the sofa was open, completely empty. On the kitchen table, a crumpled piece of paper with rushed handwriting he knew all too well. "Sorry, I can't do this anymore. The rent money is here. Take care of yourselves." But there was no money, just the note. Jason crumpled the paper tightly, feeling something burn in his chest. It wasn't the first time his father had disappeared for a few days, but this time was different. He had taken everything, the clothes, the documents, even the old cell phone that was always charging in the kitchen outlet. "Jason," Ethan's sleepy voice came from the hallway. "Why are you up so early?" The younger brother appeared, rubbing his eyes, his brown hair messy, wearing only an old pair of shorts. At 15, Ethan still had that boyish face, unlike Jason, who was starting to have more defined features, broader shoulders. "Dad." Jason tried to speak, but the words wouldn't come out. "What is it? Did he leave early again?" Jason just handed him the note. Ethan took it with both hands, read it once, then read it again. His brown eyes began to fill with water as he reread the words, as if hoping they would change. He's gone? For real?" Ethan's voice came out thin, broken. "He took everything. The money, his things, everything." Ethan let the paper fall to the floor and went to the window, looking at the dirt road that went down the mountain, as if hoping to see their father coming back at any moment, saying it was just a bad joke. Jason went to the kitchen cabinet and opened the doors. There wasn't much. 2 packages of pasta, an almost empty can of tomato sauce, half a dozen eggs, a piece of cheese starting to mold. In the small freezer of the old refrigerator, there was a kilo of frozen chicken and nothing else. "How long will our food last?" Ethan asked without taking his eyes off the window. "A week, maybe less." "And money?" Jason went to the coffee can where his father sometimes kept some bills. There were $43 in coins and a $5 bill torn in half and taped together with Scotch tape. $48. Ethan finally turned around. His cheeks were wet, but he wasn't sobbing. It was a silent cry, the kind that hurts more because it doesn't all come out at once. "He said we'd be okay. After Mom left, he promised we'd be okay." Ethan wiped his face with the back of his hand. He lied. "Stop!" Jason felt the anger rising in his throat. "Don't cry for him. He doesn't deserve it." "I'm not crying for him. I'm crying because we're alone again and I'm scared." The honesty of the words hit Jason like a punch. Ethan had always been more open with his feelings, while he had learned to swallow everything since he was little. Someone had to be the strong one, and that someone had always been him. "We're not alone. There's you and me, and we'll figure it out." Jason tried to sound confident, but his own voice betrayed him with a tremor at the end. "How? We're not even adults. What if someone finds out? They'll send us to different shelters like when Mom left." Jason remembered those awful 3 months when they were 12 and 10. The county shelter smelled like disinfectant and loneliness. They slept in separate rooms, ate at set times, couldn't go out alone. It was the worst period of their lives until their father managed to prove he could care for the children and bring them back. "No one will find out. We'll pretend everything's normal. If anyone asks, we'll say Dad's working in the city." "How long will that work?" "As long as it has to." Ethan sat on the floor, leaning his back against the cold wall. Jason went over and sat beside him. They stayed like that for a while, just listening to the wind outside and the creaking of the cabin's old wood. The cabin had belonged to their paternal grandmother, a woman Jason barely remembered. She had left the property to her son, hoping he would do something useful with it. But their father never did anything besides live there, working odd jobs in the nearest town, 20 miles down the mountain. It had 3 small bedrooms, a living room that also served as a kitchen, and a tiny bathroom with a shower that only worked with warm water when the sun heated the pipes in the morning. The wooden walls had cracks that let the cold in, and the roof had leaks they plugged with old buckets whenever it rained. But it was their home, or it had been. "I'm going to take a shower." Ethan stood up, wiping his face once more. "Then we'll figure out what to do." Jason stayed alone in the living room, looking at the crumpled note on the floor. He picked up the paper and tore it into smaller and smaller pieces until it became confetti. He threw it all in the trash and went to prepare something for them to eat. The following days were a confusing mix of trying to maintain routine and dealing with the new reality. Jason woke up early, made coffee, and whatever food they had, pretended everything was fine. Ethan played along, but grew increasingly quiet, spending hours lying in bed or sitting on the porch staring into space. On the third day, Jason took the old bicycle and rode down to Walter's General Store, a blue-painted wooden building that sold a little bit of everything. The old man was sitting in a rocking chair at the entrance, a straw hat covering his face as he dozed. "Old Walter?" Jason leaned the bike against the wall. The man lifted his hat, revealing a face wrinkled by sun and years. He had to be about 70, maybe more. "Jason? Haven't seen you around here in a while, boy. Where's your father?" "He's working. Asked me to come get some things." "On credit?" "Yeah, we'll pay next week when he gets paid." Old Walter looked at Jason for a bit too long. Those faded blue eyes seemed to see more than they should. "All right, get what you need. But don't go overboard, okay? Your father still owes from last month." Jason felt his face grow hot with shame. He took the bare minimum, 2 bags of rice, beans, oil, salt, and a dozen eggs. As he was leaving, old Walter called him back. "Jason, if you need anything, if there's any trouble, you can come talk to me, okay?" "Okay. Thanks, old Walter." He pedaled up the mountain with the bag hanging from the handlebars, sweat running down his back despite the afternoon chill. When he got home, he found Ethan sitting on the porch with a strange expression. "There's a man wanting to talk to you." Ethan pointed inside the house. Jason dropped the bike and entered. A man in a wrinkled suit was in the living room, looking around with a clipboard in his hand. "Are you Jason?" "I am. Who are you?" "My name is Julian. I'm from Mr. Thompson's office. I came to discuss the property rent." Jason's stomach dropped. Mr. Thompson was the official owner of the land where the cabin stood. Their grandmother had the right to live there her whole life, but had never actually purchased the land. When she passed away, their father negotiated a symbolic rent to continue living there with his sons. "The rent is paid up," Jason lied. "No, it's not. It's 3 months overdue, and Mr. Thompson hasn't been able to reach your father for weeks. He's away on business. Look, kid, I don't want to cause trouble for you, but Mr. Thompson needs the money, or he'll have to ask you to leave. It's 3 months overdue, $450 total, $450. It might as well be 450,000 by how impossible the number sounded in Jason's head. "How much time do we have?" 2 weeks. If you don't have at least half the amount by then, I'll have to come back with eviction papers." Julian left, placing a paper on the table with the detailed amounts and a date circled in red. Jason crumpled the paper and threw it away. "Are we going to be kicked out?" Ethan was at the door, his eyes wide. "No, I'll figure something out." "How? If we don't have money, we have nothing." "I said I'll figure it out." Jason left, slamming the door, heading straight for the small shed at the back of the property. It was a place he avoided because it held tools and old things from his grandfather, whom he never met. Messing around there always gave him a bad feeling, like intruding on a ghost's life. But now he needed to see if there was anything they could sell. The shed was full of junk, rusty tools, boxes of nails and screws, pieces of rotten wood, old sacks that used to hold animal feed. In the back, covered by a torn tarp, Jason found a chainsaw that seemed functional and some carpentry tools still in good condition. He carried everything outside, cleaned off the rust, and separated what seemed sellable. With luck, he could get about $100 for that. It was still far from $450, but it was something. Ethan appeared carrying a glass of water. "Sorry for yelling." Jason accepted the water and drank it all at once. "I know you're trying." Ethan sat on a tree stump. But maybe we should ask for help, from old Walter or someone. And say what? That our dad ran away and left us with nothing. They'll want to send us back to the county shelter. At least there we have a place to sleep and food, separated, in different rooms, following stupid rules, not being able to decide anything about our own lives. Jason put the glass down hard. I'd rather die than go back to that place. Don't talk like that. It's true. We'll manage on our own. It's always been that way. Ethan stayed quiet for a moment, playing with a twig. You know what I don't get? Why did he leave right now? We're on school break. We could have helped him with some work. We always managed before. Because he's weak. He always was. Mum at least had the decency to tell us to our faces that she was leaving. He ran away like a coward during the night. Their mother had left when Ethan was 9 and Jason 11. She had sat down with them one afternoon and explained that she didn't love their father anymore, that she needed to start over somewhere else, that she would send money every month. She never did. She never gave any news again. It was as if she had vanished from the map. For months, Jason would wake up in the middle of the night, thinking he would find her in the kitchen making that mint tea she liked. But she never was. Their father started drinking more, working less, looking at his sons as if they were living reminders of his own failure. We'll sell these tools tomorrow. Jason stood up, wiping his hands on his pants. And we'll think of some way to make real money. Something we can do right here without having to lie about our age or documents. Like what? I don't know yet, but we'll think of something. That night, Jason couldn't sleep. He lay staring at the ceiling, listening to Ethan snoring in the next room, thinking about all the possibilities and discarding them one by one. They were too young for official jobs, had no special skills, didn't know anyone influential. The property had a few acres of land, but it was all weeds and rocks. You couldn't grow anything commercial there. The land was too steep, the soil too poor. When he finally managed to sleep, dawn was already breaking. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now, continuing. A week passed in a blur. Jason sold the tools to a junkyard in town and got $80. He also sold the old television that barely worked for another $30, $110. They still needed $340. Ethan tried to help by offering to do odd jobs, but nobody wanted to hire a 15-year-old boy with no experience. Jason did some land clearing work for distant neighbors, earning $20 here, $30 there. By the end of the first week, they had $173, less than half of what they needed, and the food was running out again. It was on a cold Thursday that everything changed. Ethan had left early in the morning saying he was going to walk around the property. Jason was in the kitchen trying to make the beans stretch another day when he heard the shout. He dropped everything and ran outside. Ethan was at the edge of the property, near the old fence that separated the land from the mountain thicket. Jason, come quick. When he got closer, Jason saw it. A horse, a spotted horse, white with black spots, trapped in the barbed wire fence. The animal was lying on its side, trembling, with cuts on its legs and chest where the wire had torn the skin. Wow. Jason approached slowly. He must have tried to jump and got stuck. The horse lifted its head, eyes wide with fear. It was thin, ribs showing under its coat stained with mud and dried blood. We need to free him. Ethan was already trying to loosen the wire. Careful. He might kick you. He's scared. Look how he's looking at us. Jason took an old pair of pliers from his pants pocket and began carefully cutting the wire. The horse struggled a bit, but was too weak to put up much of a fight. When it was finally free, the animal tried to stand up and fell again. He's too hurt. Ethan ran his hand along the horse's neck, trying to calm it. We can't leave him here. Ethan, we can barely feed ourselves. How are we going to take care of a horse? We'll figure it out. Please look at him. He'll get worse if we do nothing. Jason looked at the horse, then at his brother. Ethan had that expression from when he was younger and asked for something with all his heart. It was impossible to say no. All right, but only until he gets better. Then we'll figure out what to do. It took them almost 2 hours to bring the horse to the shed. It could barely walk, so they had to stop every few meters. Jason improvised a bed from old straw he found in another corner of the shed, and Ethan went to get water. "We need medicine and food for him." Ethan poured clean water on the wounds, making the horse snort in pain. "With what money?" "That money we saved." "That money is for the rent, Ethan. We're already behind. If we spend it on a horse, they'll kick us out. And if we don't spend it, this horse will get worse. He might even... you know." Ethan couldn't say the word. "Please, just the essentials. I promise I'll work twice as hard to replace it." Jason rubbed his face, tired. He knew he was making a stupid decision, but he couldn't see any way out that didn't involve the disappointment in his brother's eyes. "All right. But you're coming with me to the vet, and we only buy the essentials." The nearest vet was in town, inside a simple house with a faded sign out front. The vet, a woman about 40 years old with graying hair in a ponytail, listened to the description of the injuries and prepared a basic kit. "You'll need antibiotics, anti-inflammatories, supplies to clean the wounds, and healing ointment." She started separating the items into a cardboard box. "And the horse will need appropriate feed. How much can you spend?" $120. Jason said the number they'd decided on during the trip. The veterinarian looked at the two of them, at their worn-out clothes and old shoes, and sighed. "I'll tell you what. I'll take you to the feed warehouse and we'll get a better price. And I'll give you the medications at cost. But you have to promise you'll take proper care of this animal." "We promise," Ethan replied too quickly, his eyes shining with gratitude. They left with medications, bandaging supplies, and 2 20-kilogram bags of feed. They spent $142, more than they had planned, but necessary. When they returned, the horse was still in the same place, but seemed a little less frightened. Ethan began the treatment immediately, carefully cleaning each wound, applying the ointment, giving fresh water in an old bucket. "We should give him a name," Ethan said while working. "No naming. We're not keeping him. Just while he's here then. How about Thunder? Too obvious. Spot? Because of the spots. So creative, huh? Then you choose." Jason looked at the horse, at the black spots on the white coat, at the big frightened eyes that seemed to beg for help. "Cloud. We'll call him Cloud." Ethan smiled, that rare smile Jason hadn't seen in days. "Cloud. I like it." In the following days, caring for the horse became a routine. Ethan spent hours in the shed, changing bandages, giving food and water, whispering to the animal as if it could understand. Jason noticed his brother was different, less sad, with some purpose that made his eyes shine again. But reality kept knocking at the door. The rent deadline was ending and they only had $31. Jason had sold everything he could sell. There was nothing left of value in the house. On the 13th day after their father abandoned them, Julian returned. He was wearing the same wrinkled suit and carrying the same clipboard. "So, did you get the money?" "We have..." Jason took a deep breath. $31. "31? Boy, the total amount is $450. You didn't even get half. We tried, we sold everything we could sell. I did odd jobs for everyone who would hire me, but it wasn't enough." Julian shook his head, seeming genuinely sad. "Look, I spoke with Mr. Thompson. He said if he doesn't get at least $200 today, he'll start the eviction process." "Eviction process? But you said we had 2 weeks." "And you do. 2 weeks to leave after the process starts. But Mr. Thompson can't wait any longer. He needs this money." Ethan appeared at the shed door, hearing the whole conversation. His eyes went from his brother to Julian and back. "What if we paid a little each month? Like installments?" Ethan tried. "Mr. Thompson has made it clear he doesn't want to negotiate anymore. He wants the money or he wants the property back to rent to someone else." Julian left a new paper on the table, this one with official stamps and legal language Jason could barely understand. But one thing was clear. They had 14 days to leave the cabin. When Julian left, the brothers stood in the living room in silence. A heavy, suffocating silence, full of all the words they didn't know how to say. "We need a miracle," Ethan finally spoke. "Miracles don't exist. Then what do we do? Jason had no answer. For the first time since their father left, he felt completely defeated. They had 14 days to get money that seemed impossible or end up on the streets. With an injured horse that could barely walk and ate feed that cost more than their own food. That night, Jason had a strange dream. He was riding Cloud, galloping through the mountains, and everything seemed simple and good. When he woke up, it was still dark and he had a crazy idea in his head. He got up and went to the shed where Ethan was sleeping next to the horse, which had improved significantly in recent days. The wounds were healing, and it could stand for longer periods. "Ethan, wake up!" "Huh? What time is it?" "That doesn't matter. I had an idea." Ethan sat up, rubbing his eyes. Cloud also woke up, moving its ears toward them. "What kind of idea?" "Remember that time we went to town with Dad, and there were those people offering horseback rides to tourists. They charged about $50 per person for a ride through the woods." Ethan stared at him as if he had spoken in a foreign language. "You want to do tourist rides?" "Why not? We live in a mountain area. There are beautiful trails nearby, and we have a horse now." "Jason, Cloud can barely walk properly yet, and we don't know how to ride, and we don't have a saddle, and we don't have a license, and there are probably a million other things we don't have and don't know." "I know all that. But what's the other option? Wait for some miracle to fall from the sky?" "We have 11 days, Ethan. 11 days to come up with something, or we lose the only home we have." Ethan looked at Cloud, which was chewing hay peacefully, oblivious to the whole conversation. "How long until it's fully healed?" The vet said 2-3 weeks with the right care. "We don't have 3 weeks." "I know, but maybe we have enough to at least try." They spent the next few days preparing. Jason found videos online about how to make an improvised saddle, and they used old wood from the shed, leather from an abandoned couch they found in the bushes, and sturdy rope bought with the last dollars they had. The result wasn't pretty, but it seemed functional. The problem was learning to ride. Cloud was gentle but still recovering and afraid of weight on its back. In the first attempts, Jason could get on, but the horse would get nervous, walking in tight circles. "Talk to it," Ethan suggested. "Like, calm it down the way you do when you're changing the bandage." Jason felt silly, but he tried. He stroked Cloud's neck, spoke softly, and slowly put more weight on the improvised saddle. The horse still trembled but didn't panic. "It's working," Ethan clapped. "Now try going for a ride." It took 3 days of training for Jason to get Cloud to walk steadily with him on its back. The horse still limped slightly on one leg, but it was much better. Ethan tried riding too and found he had a natural way with the animal. Cloud responded to his commands more easily, as if understanding what he wanted. "You should lead the rides." Jason got off the horse after a full accident-free ride around the property. "It likes you more. But you're the older one, and more reliable. If a customer sees me, a 15-year-old controlling a horse, fair enough." There were 6 days left until the eviction when they put up an improvised ad at Walter's General Store. Horseback rides through the mountains, 2-hour trail ride, $50 per person. Jason had drawn a basic map of the area by hand and tacked it up too. Old Walter saw the poster and shook his head. "Do you boys know what you're doing?" "No." Jason was honest. "But we have to try." "And does your father know about this?" Jason and Ethan exchanged a quick look. "He is working out of town, but he left us in charge of things here." The old man didn't seem to believe it, but he didn't press further. He just left the poster pinned on the bulletin board next to chicken sale ads and farm job offers. 3 days passed without any response. Jason began to think the idea had been stupid from the start. They were going to lose the house and had even wasted time on that impossible plan. It was on the morning of the 4th day that a silver pickup truck stopped in front of the cabin. A woman got out wearing black dress pants and a white blouse, with high heels completely unsuitable for that terrain. She was in her early 50s, with dark blonde hair pulled into an impeccable bun, and carried an expensive purse that probably cost more than 3 months' rent for the property. "Hello?" Her voice was polite but cold. "Are you the ones who advertised the horseback rides?" "Yes, Mum." Jason wiped his dirt-covered hands on his pants. "Are you interested?" She looked around, seeing the old cabin, the makeshift shed, and then looked at Jason and Ethan with an expression mixing suspicion and something like pity. "How old are you?" "I'm 18 and my brother is 16. Jason lied without blinking. "Really?" She raised one perfectly shaped eyebrow. "Do you have the property deed, tourism operation license, liability insurance?" Jason felt his blood run cold. They had none of that. "We're in the process of getting everything sorted out." "In the process," she repeated with a tone that made it clear she didn't believe it. "And your parents? Where are they?" "Working in the city. They left us in charge of the business." The woman walked a full circle around the cabin, her heels sinking into the ground with each step. She stopped in front of the shed where Cloud was, observing the horse with critical eyes. "Is he your only horse?" "For now, yes. But we're planning to expand." "Expand?" Again that tone. "Do you understand you're doing something potentially dangerous and illegal? If someone gets hurt during one of these rides, you'll face criminal charges, and you'll lose everything you have." Ethan, who had stayed quiet until then, stepped forward. "We know the risks, but we need to try." His voice came out soft but firm. The woman studied him for a long moment. "Why? Why what? Why do you need to try? What happened that left two obviously underage boys trying to make money with an improvised business?" Jason felt anger starting to boil. Who did this woman think she was? Coming to their property with her expensive clothes and superior attitude, asking questions that were none of her business. "With all due respect, ma'am, that's not your concern. Do you want to take the ride or not?" The woman stared at him, and for a moment Jason thought she would leave, probably straight to some authority to report them. But then she opened her purse and took out a $50 bill. "I do. But if I notice anything that puts my life at risk, I'll stop the ride immediately and you'll refund my money. And I'll make sure to spread the word throughout the region that you're offering a dangerous and inadequate service. Understood?" "Understood." Jason took the money with a slightly trembling hand. Ethan went to get Cloud, while Jason explained the route they had planned. It was a 3-kilometer trail that went up the mountain, passed by a pretty creek, and returned in a complete circle. Nothing too challenging, but with interesting views. When Ethan brought the horse with the makeshift saddle, the woman looked at it with poorly disguised horror. "This is the saddle you use?" "We made it. It's sturdy." Jason knocked on the wood to demonstrate. "You made it? A saddle, made of wood and sofa leather. And it works." The woman closed her eyes, took a deep breath as if gathering patience, and approached Cloud. The horse, to his credit, remained calm while she ran her hand along his neck. "At least the animal seems well cared for." "We take good care of him," Ethan spoke with pride. Jason helped the woman mount, which was difficult because of the high heels she insisted on keeping on. Once mounted, she took the reins with hands that clearly knew what they were doing. She had experience with horses. "Are you coming with me?" she asked. "I am. My brother stays here in case another customer shows up." Jason walked alongside Cloud, holding the rope attached to the saddle as extra security. They began to climb the trail, the morning sun filtering through the trees. For the first 15 minutes the woman said nothing. She just observed everything around her, her body tense, clearly ready to jump if something went wrong. But Cloud was behaving perfectly, walking at the right pace, responding to her commands. It was when they reached the creek, a flatter area with crystal-clear water running over stones, that she finally spoke. "How did you find this horse?" "He was caught in the fence, injured. We took care of him." "And so you think you can use him to make money?" "We're not using him, Jason searched for the right words. "We're trying to survive the best we can. Without your parents?" Jason fell silent. He could keep lying, but he felt it wouldn't work with that woman. "Our father left. He took everything and left us alone. We're going to be evicted from the house in 3 days if we can't get $450 for the overdue rent." The woman stopped Cloud and looked at Jason. Her light blue eyes seemed to see through all the layers of bravado he had built up. "I knew it. You two reek of desperation from miles away." "Then why did you come for the ride?" "Because I wanted to see how far you were willing to go. If it was all talk or if you had real courage. And you're two idiots. Completely unprepared and doing everything wrong, but you have courage." She dismounted, stroked Cloud for a moment, and started walking back along the trail. Jason followed her, not understanding what was happening. "Is the ride over?" "We didn't finish the circuit." "Whatever, I saw what I needed to see." When they got back, Ethan was waiting anxiously. "So, how was it?" The woman turned to the two of them. "It was awful. The saddle is horrible. You clearly don't know what you're doing, and it's a miracle this horse can bear any weight, considering he's still recovering from serious injuries." Ethan looked at the ground, defeated. Jason felt the anger return. "Then why did you come here just to criticize, to feel better about yourself?" "I came," she said calmly, "because I saw your ad, and it reminded me of myself many years ago, when I was also desperate and trying anything to survive." The brothers fell silent. "What are your names?" "Jason. And this is Ethan, my brother. My name is Helen, and I have a proposal to make." Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, please take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out. Now continuing. Helen took them to her house, a modern 2-story building at the foot of the mountain, with a well-kept garden and a spectacular view. Inside, everything was clean and organized, the kind of place Jason thought only existed in magazines. She made coffee and put bread with butter on the table. The brothers ate too quickly, showing they were hungrier than they wanted to admit. "I'll get straight to the point." Helen sat across from them. "I want to invest in your business." Jason almost choked on his coffee. "Invest?" $500 now to pay your overdue rent and buy proper materials. In return, I get 20% of any profit you make over the next 6 months. "Why would you do that?" Ethan asked with the natural suspicion of someone who'd learned not to trust offers that seemed too good to be true. "Because I see potential. Not in you specifically. I don't yet know if you have what it takes. But I see potential in the idea and the location. This area gets tourists year-round and there aren't many activity options. Well-done horseback rides could work. But there are conditions." She raised a finger. "You do everything my way. No jerry-rigging, no dangerous improvisations. I can borrow proper saddles from a friend of mine. You train properly. And when you open for real, you do everything with safety and professionalism." "And if we don't accept?" Helen shrugged. "You lose the house in 3 days. You'll probably end up in separate county shelters, and the horse will be taken somewhere that takes abandoned animals. Your choices are limited." Jason hated to admit it, but she was right. They didn't have many options. "How do we know we can trust you?" "You don't. Just like I don't know if I can trust you. It's a risk for both sides." Helen took a folder from a drawer. "But I brought a contract. Simple, clear, no fine print. You can read it, think it over, and decide." The contract was 2 pages long. Helen would lend $500 now, and another 1,000 later for structural improvements. In return, she'd get 20% of the profits for 6 months. If the business wasn't profitable in 6 months, she'd have the right to sell her share to someone willing to take over. She wouldn't have control over daily decisions, but could suggest changes and would have access to records of their earnings. "Can I speak with my brother in private?" Jason asked. "Of course, you can use the room over there." In the room, Jason and Ethan sat on the bed. "What do you think?" Jason asked. "I think it's too good to be true, but I also think we don't have much choice. She might be trying to trick us. Why? We have nothing she could want." Jason thought about that. It was true. They had no money, no assets, nothing of value except an injured horse and property that wasn't even theirs. "What if it works?" Ethan continued. "We pay the rent, keep the house, and even have a chance to turn this into something real. And if it doesn't work?" "We're already at rock bottom, bro. Can't sink much lower than this." They returned to the living room where Helen was waiting patiently, drinking tea. "We accept," Jason said. "But with one condition, too." "What?" "If it goes wrong, if this isn't working in 6 months, you can't sell your share to just anyone. It has to be someone we approve." Helen thought for a moment, then nodded. "Fair. I'll add that to the contract." She made the modification by hand. Everyone signed, and Helen wrote a check for $500. Jason held the paper as if it might explode any second. "Tomorrow I'll bring the saddles and some equipment you'll need." Helen picked up her bag, and a list of things you need to learn before opening this officially. It won't be easy, and I'll be very demanding. Still think you want to do this? We do. Ethan answered for both of them. That same day, Jason went to Mr. Thompson's office and paid the $450 in overdue rent. Julian was so surprised, he asked to count the money twice. How did you manage this? We figured it out. And the coming months? Will you be able to pay on time? We will. Jason left with a signed receipt and the feeling that he'd just won the first battle of a long war. They still had $50 left, which he carefully put away. Helen kept her word. The next day she showed up with a pickup truck loaded with things. 2 real saddles, blankets, proper reins, horse grooming supplies, buckets, and even a small portable electric generator. Where did all this come from? Ethan widened his eyes. Connections. I know people in the rural tourism business. This is all borrowed until you buy your own equipment. During the following week, Helen went to the cabin every day. She taught Jason and Ethan how to properly put on and remove the saddle, to read the horse's body language, to identify when it was tired or stressed. She taught basic riding commands, how to control speed, how to turn, how to stop in emergency situations. You're terrible at this, she said on the 3rd day after watching Jason fall off the horse for the 5th time. Thanks for the honesty. Jason got up, brushing the dirt off his clothes. It's not criticism, it's a fact, but you're improving. Slowly but improving. Ethan fared better. He had a natural way of communicating with Cloud, and the horse responded to his commands easily. By the end of the first week, he could already complete a full ride along the trail without any problems. You have talent, Helen praised after watching him ride. Your brother will need more time, but you can already lead tours. Really? I wouldn't lie about that, but there's still a lot to learn. You need to learn how to handle different types of clients, emergency situations. Basic first aid for both people and the horse. She brought manuals, had them watch videos online using her cell phone, and even brought a veterinarian friend to teach the basics of care for riding animals. Jason absorbed everything like a sponge. He took notes in an old notebook, practiced until his muscles ached, studied at night by candlelight when the cabin's power went out. Ethan was more instinctive, but also dedicated. He woke up before sunrise to take care of Cloud, brushed the horse's coat until it shined, spoke to him in a low voice while changing the water and food. At the end of the 2nd week, Helen brought news. I got 2 more horses, she announced. What do you mean? A friend of mine has a horse ranch and wanted to get rid of 2 older horses. They're no longer suitable for competition, but they're perfect for trail rides. Gentle, well-trained, healthy. He'll lend them for 6 months in exchange for proper care. We don't have the structure for 2 more horses. That's why I brought this. Helen pointed to the pickup truck where there was wood, nails, and tools. We're going to build a real stable. The next few days were heavy work. Helen hired an acquaintance who knew about construction to make the plan and teach the brothers. Jason and Ethan worked from sunup to sundown, sawing wood, nailing boards, digging holes for the posts. The result wasn't pretty, but it was functional. A simple stable with 3 stalls, proper feeders, and enough cover to protect the animals from the sun and rain. When the 2 new horses arrived, Jason couldn't believe it. One was dark brown, almost black, named Cole. The other was a caramel-colored mare with a blonde mane named Honey. Ethan was speechless. Trained, Helen completed. You can ride them safely. But still, be careful. Horses are big, strong animals. Always respect them. With 3 horses, the possibilities expanded. Now they could do rides with up to 3 people at the same time, which meant more potential profit. Helen helped make proper advertisements, not only at Walter's General Store, but at inns and hotels in the area. She had connections, new owners knew how to sell the idea. Family trail rides through the mountains, experienced guides, gentle, well-cared-for horses, safety guaranteed. She read the text aloud. What do you think? Experienced guides is a bit of an exaggeration, Jason pointed out. You don't need to be experts. They just need to be capable and confident, and you're getting there. The first official ride took place on a sunny Tuesday. A middle-aged couple staying at a nearby inn had seen the ad and decided to give it a try. Jason was so nervous he could barely tie the saddle properly. Ethan had to help him, whispering words of encouragement. "We can do this. We trained for it." "And if it goes wrong?" "It won't." Helen watched from a distance but didn't interfere. The clients were friendly, asking questions about the region, commenting on the beauty of the place. Ethan led the mare Honey with the woman, while Jason went with the man on Cole. Cloud stayed resting as he wasn't fully recovered for longer rides yet. It was 2 peaceful hours. The horses behaved perfectly, the weather was good, and the couple was delighted with the mountain views and the creek where they stopped to rest. "How much is it?" the man asked at the end. $50 per person. Jason tried to sound professional. "Here you go." The man gave $120. "The rest is a tip. You did a great job." When the clients left, Jason and Ethan looked at each other and then burst into celebration, jumping and shouting like kids. Helen approached with a small smile on her face. "Not bad for beginners." "We did it." Ethan was beaming. "You got 1 ride, now you need to get many more." But she was smiling, and that was something. The following days brought more clients, not every day, but enough to keep the brothers busy and bring in some money. Helen taught them about basic management, about setting aside money for fixed expenses, about keeping an emergency fund. 20% of everything you earn goes to the reserve, she instructed. Always, no matter how tempting it is to spend it all. You need financial security. Jason learned to do the accounts, to record every income and expense in the notebook. Ethan took on word-of-mouth marketing, talking to other merchants in the area, making friends, spreading the word about the rides. At the end of the first month operating officially, they had earned $1,200. After paying the rent, $150, buying food and feed, $300, and setting aside the reserve, $240, $510 remained. Of these, $140 went to Helen as part of the agreement. It wasn't much, but it was something. It was theirs. It was honest. "You're doing well," Helen said upon seeing the numbers. "Better than I expected for the first month. Is it enough?" "It's a start. If you keep this pace and manage to increase a little every month, in 6 months you'll be stable." Stable. The word sounded like a distant but possible dream. Things seemed to be improving. The cabin was no longer that place of abandonment and sadness. Jason had fixed the roof using materials bought with the money they earned. Ethan had planted a small garden in front, with flowers a client had given as a gift. The stable was always clean, the horses well cared for and healthy. Cloud had fully recovered and now also joined the rides. He was a favorite among clients because of his unique spots. Jason and Ethan had developed a routine. They woke up early, took care of the animals, made breakfast, prepared everything for possible rides. When there were no clients, they took the opportunity to do maintenance, clean, or study more about horses and tourism. At night, they sat on the porch and talked about the day, about future plans, about how things had changed. "Do you think Dad knows?" Ethan asked one of those nights. "Knows what?" "That we're okay, that we didn't need him in the end." Jason was quiet for a while. "I don't know and I don't care." "Liar. You do care." "Okay, I do care, but it doesn't change anything. He chose to leave. We chose to stay and fight." "Do you think he'll ever come back?" "I hope not." But Jason was lying. A part of him, small and stubborn, still hoped to see his father coming up that dirt road, apologizing, wanting a chance to make things right. The other part, the stronger part, knew it would be better if he never returned. Dear listener, if you're enjoying the story, take a moment to like and especially subscribe to the channel. It really helps us who are just starting out, now continuing. The second month was even better than the first. The business's reputation was growing, and they started receiving reservations in advance. Helen had suggested they set up a phone number for contact using the old cell phone she had lent them. It was Ethan who answered most of the calls. He had a way with people, knew how to be friendly without seeming fake, knew how to sell the experience without exaggerating. Jason preferred the practical side, taking care of the horses, maintaining the stable, leading the trails, handling the physical part of the work. He wasn't good with words, never had been, but he was good with his hands. One morning, while Jason was cleaning the stable, he heard a conversation at the gate. Ethan was talking to someone, but the voice didn't sound like a customer's. He went out to see and found an older woman, probably around 70, with white hair tied in a braid. She wore simple clothes, rubber boots, and had a sharp look that seemed to miss nothing. "This is my brother Jason. Jason, this is Miss Martha. She lives over there on the property next door, right after the curve." "Nice to meet you." Jason wiped his hand on his pants before greeting her. "So, you're the boys who are doing horseback riding?" Miss Martha spoke with a thick accent. "I've been hearing about it." "Yes, Ma'am. Are you interested?" "No, thank you. My bones haven't been able to handle horses for a long time." She laughed, a dry sound. "But I came here for another reason." "What is it?" "I saw that you built a stable. Nice work, but it's missing some things. I have old equipment from my late husband that might be useful. Harnesses, tools, an old saddle that was from his mare. You can have it all." Jason and Ethan exchanged a surprised look. "You want to give it to us?" "Give? No, my boy, I don't give anything away for free." Miss Martha crossed her arms. "But I'll make a fair deal. You work for me for a week, fix my fence that's falling apart, clean up my land, and you take these things." "What do you think?" Jason thought quickly. A week of work was time they could be doing rides and making money, but equipment was expensive and they needed to save as much as possible. "Can it be part-time? Like we work for you in the morning and do the rides in the afternoon?" "Sure, as long as the work is done well." "Then we have a deal." Miss Martha turned out to be an interesting person. She had lived there her whole life, knew every stone on that mountain. Her husband had passed away 10 years ago, and she had lived alone since then, maintaining a small vegetable garden and raising chickens. While they worked, fixing the fence, she told stories about the region, about what it was like when she was young, how she had seen the mountain change over the decades, how tourism had started to appear in recent years. "You have potential," she said while watching Jason nail a board. "But you need more. People who come here want more than just riding. They want the full experience." "Like what?" Ethan asked. "Home-cooked food, for example. A break in the middle of the ride with a country snack. Hot coffee, cheese bread, cornbread, those kinds of things." "We don't know how to make any of that." "But I do, and I can teach you if you want." That's how an unexpected partnership began. In the following days, when they finished work on the fence, Ms. Martha taught them how to make simple recipes. Ethan discovered he enjoyed cooking and paid attention to every detail. Jason was less interested but participated because he knew it could add value to their business. "Think of it this way," Ms. Martha explained while teaching them to make corn cake. "You charge $50 per person for the basic ride. If you offer a ride with a snack included, you can charge $70. It's little extra effort for a lot of extra money." The logic made sense. When they finished the week of work, besides the equipment Ms. Martha had promised, she also gave them a handwritten recipe notebook with notes in the margins and ingredient stains on the pages. "This notebook is 50 years old. All these recipes are tried and true." She handed it over solemnly. "Take good care of it." "We will. Thank you for everything, Ms. Martha." "You're welcome, boys, and if you need help, you know where to find me." With the new equipment and the idea of including a snack, the business took another leap. They started offering two options: a basic ride for $50 or a complete ride with a stop for homemade snacks for $75. Most customers chose the complete option, and they always praised the food. Ethan was responsible for preparing the snacks. He woke up even earlier to bake the treats, prepare thermoses with fresh coffee, and pack everything carefully. Jason set up structures on the trails, creating comfortable stopping points with makeshift benches and sun protection. In the third month, they earned almost $3,000. After all expenses and Helen's share, they still had over $1,000 left for themselves. It was more money than Jason had ever seen in his life. "We did it," Ethan said that night, looking at the notebook where they recorded everything. "We really did it." "There's still a long way to go." 3 good months don't mean it'll stay that way. You'll never admit things are getting better, will you? I'll only admit it when I'm absolutely sure nothing can go wrong. But Jason was smiling when he said it, because for the first time since his father had left, he felt something like hope. Things continued to improve in the following months. They managed to buy their own equipment, returning the ones borrowed from Helen and her friend. They renovated more parts of the cabin, fixed the refrigerator that kept breaking down, and bought a new stove to replace the old one that only had 2 working burners. The property was starting to look like a real place, not just a temporary shelter. Jason had grown a few inches and gained muscles from all the physical work. Ethan had stopped looking like a boy and started to resemble an older teenager. Both were more tanned, stronger, and more confident. Helen came less often now, only once a week to check the numbers and give suggestions. The relationship had evolved from a critical investor to something more like a mentor. She was still direct and demanding, but she also showed genuine pride in their progress. "You've surpassed yourselves," she said during one of these visits. "When I met you, I thought you'd give up at the first difficulty. You proved me wrong." "It was you who gave us the chance we needed," Jason replied. "I gave money and guidance. You gave the hard work and determination. Don't downplay what you've achieved." It was halfway through the 5th month that everything started to fall apart. It began with a strange phone call. Ethan answered the cell phone and stayed quiet for too long, just listening. When he hung up, he was pale. "Who was it?" Jason asked. "A guy wanting to speak to the property owner. He said a bunch of legal terms I didn't understand, something about documentation and registration." "Did he leave a number?" "Yes, he said it was urgent." Jason called back that same afternoon. The man identified himself as a representative from a law firm and explained that there were issues with the property that needed to be resolved. "What kind of issues?" "The property is registered under the name of Anthony Miller Wilson. I presume he's your father." "Yeah." "Well, there are documents pending from years ago, back taxes, and some irregularities in the original deed. Mr. Thompson has started a process to resolve all of this legally, which includes transferring the definitive title to his name." "But my father pays rent. We're paying rent." "Yes, but the rental agreement was informal. There's no registered contract. And with the tax arrears, Mr. Thompson has the legal right to claim the property entirely." Jason felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. "What does that mean?" "It means you have 3 months to settle the entire situation, or the property will be legally transferred to Mr. Thompson, and he will have the right to ask you to leave." "How much does it cost to settle?" "By initial estimates, around $8,000 to $10,000 in back taxes, county clerk's office fees, and attorney's fees." $10,000. It was a fortune. It was more than they had saved in the past few months. It was more than they could earn in time, even if everything went perfectly. Jason hung up the phone and went to tell Ethan. His brother listened to everything in silence, his face growing more and more serious. "Do we tell Helen?" Ethan asked. "I don't know. Maybe she'll want to back out of the deal if she finds out we might lose everything. Or maybe she can help." They decided to tell her. Helen listened to everything without interrupting, taking notes on a sheet of paper. "This is serious," she said when they finished. "But it's not impossible." "How not?" "We don't have $10,000. We won't have it in 3 months. Not alone." "But what if we get help?" "What kind of help?" Helen thought for a moment. "You do good work. You have satisfied customers. Some of those people are influential, have connections. What if we started a campaign, explained the situation and asked for contributions? Like charity?" Jason felt his pride wounded. "Not charity. Community investment. People who like it here and want to see the business continue could contribute. In return, we offer future discounts, free rides, public recognition. It's a fair exchange." Ethan was considering it. "What if it doesn't work?" "Then we try another way. But it doesn't hurt to try." They prepared a simple presentation. Jason wrote a letter explaining the situation, without going into details about his father's abandonment, but making it clear that they were 2 young brothers trying to save the home and business they had built. Helen helped spread it to previous customers, to her acquaintances, to people in the community who might be interested. The response was lukewarm. Some people contributed. $20 here, $50 there. Some sent nice messages of support. But in 2 weeks, they had raised only $1,800. It was far from enough. "It's not going to work," Jason said one night, looking at the numbers. "We're going to lose everything anyway." "We still have time, 2.5 months. And you think some miracle is going to happen in those 2 months?" Ethan didn't answer, because he had no answer. The following days were tense. They kept working, doing the rides, maintaining the routine, but there was a cloud of despair hanging over everything. It was Ms. Martha who brought a different idea. "I heard about your situation." She showed up one morning with a basket of fresh bread. "What an unfair thing." "That's life," Jason accepted a still warm bread. "Have you thought about hosting an event? Something bigger that attracts attention?" "What kind of event?" "A community trail ride. They invite everyone from the area, organize a long trail with several stops, serve food and music, and make it something memorable. They charge an entrance fee that goes to the Property Regularization Fund. No one will want to pay to help us. Don't sell it as help. Sell it as an experience. A full day of activities, good food, beautiful nature. People pay for experiences." Ethan was interested. "How much could we charge for something like that?" "About $150 per person, depending on what you offer. If you get 50 people, that's already $7,000. Add that to the 1,800 you already have, it's close to what you need." 50 people is a lot of people. "Yeah, but you have connections now. Helen, me, your old clients, the townspeople. If everyone spreads the word, you can do it." Jason looked at Ethan, who had that "let's try it" expression in his eyes. "When would we do this?" "Weekend, 3 weeks from now. Gives us time to organize and promote." They spent the next few days obsessively planning. Helen jumped in full force, using all the contacts she had. Ms. Martha mobilized the neighbors. Ethan made posters by hand and spread them around town, at Walter's General Store, at the inns, everywhere that allowed it. The event would be on Saturday. Long trail in the morning, community lunch at noon, afternoon activities like horse handling demonstrations, basic riding lessons, and live music from a guitar player that Ms. Martha knew. Registrations started slowly. 10 people the first week, 15 more the second week. In the third week, when they were almost giving up on reaching the necessary number, registrations exploded. Suddenly, they had 43 people confirmed. "Not everyone will be able to ride at the same time." Ethan pointed out the obvious. "We divide into groups, 3 groups of 15. Each group does the trail at a different time." Jason was doing the math. "It'll be hectic, but doable. And if something goes wrong?" "A lot can go wrong, but we have no choice but to try." The day of the event dawned with clear skies and pleasant temperatures. Jason had woken up at 4 in the morning with his stomach in knots from nerves. Ethan was already in the kitchen, preparing the snacks they had planned. Ms. Martha arrived at 6 with 3 friends, all bringing huge pots of food. Helen showed up soon after, organizing the borrowed tables they had managed to get, setting up the registration system at the entrance. People started arriving at 8. Whole families, couples, groups of friends, curious locals. Some were old clients, but most were new people who had heard about it. The first group left at 9 in the morning. Jason led Cole in front. Ethan came with Honey in the middle, and a volunteer that Helen had found closed the group with another horse borrowed for the day. It was slow and careful, but peaceful. People were excited, taking photos, asking questions. When they returned an hour and a half later, everyone was sweaty but smiling. The second group went at 10:30, the third at noon. When everyone had done the ride, lunch was ready. Tables full of homemade food, pitchers of juice, fresh bread. People ate, talked, laughed. A man about 60 years old approached Jason. "Are you two the owners of this place?" "We are. I'm Jason, and that's my brother Ethan. I saw on the poster that you're trying to save the property. Problems with documentation. Yes, the situation is complicated. I work at the county clerk's office." The man took a card out of his pocket. "Maybe I can help speed up some of those processes, reduce some fees." I won't be able to work miracles, but I can make it easier. Really? That would be... Thank you so much, sir. No need to thank me. You're doing something beautiful here. It deserves to be preserved. In the afternoon, there was music, demonstrations. Even some children rode the horses in a small, safe circuit they had set up. The guitar player was good, playing old songs that made some of the older people sing along. When the sun began to set and people started to leave, Jason and Ethan sat exhausted on the ground. We did it. Ethan could barely keep his eyes open. Not yet. We need to count the money. Helen counted 3 times to be sure. $150 per person, 43 confirmed people plus 7 who showed up without signing up. $7,500, she announced. Added to what they already had, it came to $9,300. They were close, very close. We're still short $700. Jason felt the weight of reality. I'll put in the $700, Helen said. No, you've already done too much. I'm not offering it for free. I'll add it to my investment and you pay me back with the monthly percentage. Accept it. You got almost all of it on your own. The last $700 is nothing. Jason looked at Ethan, who nodded. They were too tired to argue, and it was a fair offer. Okay, thank you, Helen, for everything. You're welcome. Now go to sleep. Tomorrow we start the regularization process. The following weeks were intense with bureaucracy. The man at the county clerk's office, his name was Christian, really helped. He managed to speed up documents, reduced some fees, guided them on what needed to be done and in what order. Even so, it was complicated. They had to go to the city several times a week, bring documents, sign papers, wait for stamps and approvals. Jason began to understand why so many people avoided dealing with these things. It was frustrating, time-consuming, confusing. But it was necessary. After 6 weeks, it finally came through. The property was regularized, all taxes paid, everything in legal order. And best of all, the title was now officially in the names of Jason and Ethan in joint ownership. They were the owners, for real. They no longer depended on their father, on Mr. Thompson, on anyone. The cabin, the stable, every piece of that land was theirs. That night, they made a small bonfire in the backyard. They sat side by side, drinking hot chocolate that Ethan had made. "We did it," Ethan said for the 1,000th time. "We did it." Jason agreed, and this time he really believed it. But the peace lasted only 3 days. It was on a Thursday morning. Jason was in the stable brushing Cloud when he heard the sound of a car coming up the road. It wasn't a scheduled ride day, so he was curious. He went out and saw an old pickup truck parking. The driver got out, and Jason felt as if he had been punched in the stomach. It was his father. Anthony Miller Wilson seemed to have aged 10 years in 6 months. He was thinner, had deep dark circles under his eyes. His hair was grayer. He wore the same clothes as always, but they were more worn out. "Jason." The voice was hesitant. Jason didn't answer. He stood still, every muscle in his body tense. Ethan appeared at the cabin door, saw who it was, and his expression changed from surprise to something like pain. "Dad?" "Ethan." Anthony took a step toward them and stopped when Jason stepped forward, blocking the way. "What do you want?" "I know you don't want to see me. I know I have no right to be here, but I need to talk to you. You already did. In the note you left." Jason spat out the words. "Remember, the one where you said you couldn't take it anymore and ran away like a coward?" "I know, and I have no excuse for what I did." "Then why did you come back?" Anthony rubbed his face, tired. "Because I found out that you regularized the property. That you put it in your names. So what? So what is that the property was mine? You couldn't do that without my permission." Jason's blood boiled. "You abandoned us, left us with nothing. If we hadn't regularized it, we would have lost everything." "I know, but the property was mine. It was the only thing I had. You have nothing. You gave up everything when you left." Ethan approached, putting a hand on Jason's arm. "Let him speak." "No, he doesn't deserve to speak." "Jason, please." Anthony's eyes were red now. "Let me at least explain." "There's nothing to explain. You're a coward and a traitor." "I was sick." That made Jason pause. "What?" "I was sick. I went to the doctor 2 weeks before I left." He ordered some tests. A tumor showed up, big, in the pancreas. Jason felt the floor sway a little under his feet, but the anger still burned. "You're lying." "I'm not." Anthony took a crumpled envelope from his pocket. "Here, the tests, the reports, you can see." Ethan took the envelope and opened it. Inside was a stack of medical documents. He read the first one, then the second, his face growing paler and paler. "It's true," Ethan whispered. "Of course it's not true. He's trying to manipulate us." But Jason wasn't so sure in his voice anymore. "I panicked when I got the diagnosis," Anthony continued, his voice broken. "I was going to have to get treatment, surgery, chemotherapy. I'd become weak, sick, useless. I wouldn't be able to work, I wouldn't be able to take care of you. I'd become a burden, I'd drain what little resources we had. And in the end, I might not even survive." "So you ran away." Jason felt tears burning in his eyes but refused to let them fall. "I thought I was protecting you. I had a friend in another town who offered me a place to stay during treatment. I took the money because I was going to need it for the medicine. I was going to send more as soon as I could, but the treatment was harder than I expected." "How are you now?" Ethan asked softly. "Better. I had the surgery. I'm doing chemotherapy. The doctors say I have a chance. And what do you want? Our sympathy?" Jason spat. "No, I don't want anything." Anthony looked into his oldest son's eyes. "I know you have every right to hate me. I abandoned you in the worst way possible. But I needed to know that you were okay. When I found out that you managed to get the property in order, that you started a business, that you're surviving, I was proud. I don't want your pride. I know. And I'm not asking for forgiveness, because I don't deserve it. I just wanted you to know the truth. And to say that, you were always the best things that ever happened to me, even when I ruined everything." Anthony went back to the pickup truck. Before getting in, he turned around one more time. "The property is yours. I won't contest it. You earned every inch of that land." He got in the car and started the engine. "Wait!" Ethan shouted. Anthony stopped, the window open. Do you have a place to stay? Are you getting the treatment properly?" "I am. Don't worry about me." "But I do worry." Jason looked at his brother, incredulous. "You can't be serious." "He's our father, Jason. He messed up bad, but he's our father. He abandoned us. And he's sick, and he tried to protect us the wrong way." Ethan stared at his older brother. "I'm not saying I've forgiven him. I don't know if I will. But he came here, admitted his mistakes, showed the documents. He didn't have to do any of that." Jason wanted to scream, wanted to punch something, wanted his father to disappear again and never come back. But at the same time, a tiny part of him, buried deep down, wanted to believe there was an explanation, that the abandonment hadn't been for lack of love, but out of fear and desperation. "If we let him back into our lives, he'll disappoint us again," Jason said, more to himself than to Ethan. "Maybe. But what if we don't and we regret it later?" Anthony was still waiting in the pickup truck, not pushing, not forcing. Jason took several deep breaths, trying to control the chaos of emotions inside him. "All right," he said at last, "but I have conditions." "Conditions?" Ethan was surprised. "He can stay, but not as the owner, as a guest. He works, helps, proves he's changed. If at any moment he slips up, if he lies, if he fails again, he leaves and never comes back. No second chances after that." Ethan agreed and went to the pickup truck to explain. Anthony listened to everything in silence, then got out of the car and approached slowly. "I accept the conditions, all of them. You'll sleep in the small back room." Jason spoke without looking at his father. "Don't touch the stable. Don't touch the horses. Don't make any decisions about the business. When you have strength, you work. When you don't, stay quiet in your room. Understood? And don't expect us to treat you like a father. You lost that right." Anthony swallowed hard but nodded. The first few days were strange and tense. Anthony stayed in his room most of the time, only coming out for meals. He ate in silence, thanked them for the food, went back to his room. Jason completely avoided him. He only spoke when necessary, didn't look him in the eye, treated him like an inconvenient stranger. Ethan was a bit kinder, but still guarded. He brought medicine when his father needed it, asked if he was feeling well, but didn't start deeper conversations. It was in the second week that things began to change. Jason was struggling to fix the stable roof that had developed a new leak. It was hard work, requiring strength and carpentry knowledge he didn't fully have. "You're doing it wrong," a voice came from below. Jason looked and saw Anthony standing there, watching. "I didn't ask for your opinion." "I know, but if you keep going like this, you'll make the situation worse. Let me show you." Jason was going to refuse, but he was really stuck. Against all his instincts, he came down the ladder. Anthony went up, examined the planks, and started working. He had experience in this. His hands knew what to do. In 20 minutes, he had fixed the problem Jason had been struggling with for hours. "Done. It'll hold for a few more years." "Thanks," Jason mumbled. In the following days, Anthony started helping with small things. He fixed what was broken, painted what was peeling, organized what was messy, always without asking for permission, just doing it. Ethan started talking more with him during dinner. Questions about the treatment, about how he was feeling, about mundane everyday things. Jason remained resistant, but began to notice changes. His father was different. Calmer, more careful, more attentive. He didn't have that nervous restlessness from before, that way of always being ready to run from something. It was on a Sunday, when there was no scheduled ride, that something changed for good. Jason was in the pasture watching the horses when Cole started limping. He ran over and saw that the horse had its front hoof stuck in a hole, partially covered by grass. "Easy, easy." Jason tried to calm the animal, but Cole was panicking, trying to pull its hoof out hard and only making the situation worse. Suddenly, Anthony was there beside him. "Don't let him pull, he'll break his leg." "What do I do then?" "Hold his head. Calm him. I'll get the hoof out." Jason stood in front of Cole, speaking softly, while Anthony bent down and with extreme care began to widen the hole and gently free the hoof. It took several tense minutes, with Cole trying to struggle and Jason having to use all his strength to keep him still. Finally, the hoof came out. "He's free. Let him walk, but slowly." Jason released Cole, who took a few steps limping but didn't seem too hurt. Nothing was broken, just a bit twisted. "He'll be fine." Anthony examined the hoof. "A few days of rest and he'll recover." "How did you know what to do?" "My father had horses when I was young. I learned a lot before he sold everything." It was the first time Anthony had mentioned his own past. Jason realized he had never thought of his father as a person with his own history, with parents and problems and lessons. "Thank you," Jason said, and this time he truly meant it. "You're welcome, son." The word son fell between them like a stone in a lake. Jason felt something tighten in his chest, but it wasn't anger this time, it was something more complicated. "I'm still angry," Jason spoke, "about what you did, how you left us." "I know, and you have every right. But I understand why you did it." "Understanding isn't forgiving, but it's something." Anthony nodded, his eyes glistening with moisture. "It's more than I deserve." In the following months, the dynamic slowly changed. Anthony became part of the routine. He woke up early to help with the horses, made breakfast on days when Ethan needed to focus on the baked goods, did small repairs around the property. He never tried to take control. He always asked before doing something, always respected Jason and Ethan's decisions. He was following the conditions to the letter. The conversations became easier. During dinners, Anthony began telling stories from his own youth, how he had met their mother, how things had been before everything fell apart. Jason realized he had never truly known his own father. He had grown up seeing only a tired and defeated man, but he had never seen the person behind it. It was one night, almost 5 months after Anthony had returned, that Jason finally managed to say the words that had been stuck for so long. The three of them were on the porch, drinking tea and looking at the stars. "I forgive you," Jason said suddenly. Anthony turned, surprised. "What?" "I forgive you. For the abandonment, the lie, for everything." It doesn't mean I've forgotten. It doesn't mean everything is back to normal. But I don't want to carry this anger anymore." Anthony began to cry, a silent cry of relief and gratitude. "Thank you, son. Thank you." Ethan joined the hug, and the three stayed there, a broken family that was slowly mending. The story could have ended there, in a simple, happy ending. But life is rarely that simple. 2 weeks later, during a trail ride, something went wrong. It was a large group, 8 people, including a family with 2 children. Jason was leading, Ethan was behind, and Anthony had stayed at the cabin taking care of things. Everything was going fine until Honey, the mare, got spooked by a snake on the trail. She kicked sideways, knocking off the client who was riding. The woman fell and hit her arm on a rock. It wasn't broken, but it was bleeding and she was in a panic, screaming in pain. Jason tried to stay calm, took off his shirt to make an improvised bandage, while Ethan held the mare, who was agitated. "We need to go back, now," Jason said. "What about the other clients?" "Ethan takes everyone back slowly. I'll go ahead with her." Jason practically ran the trail back, helping the woman who was pale with pain. When they arrived, Anthony saw the situation and immediately grabbed the truck keys. "Hospital, quick." They took the woman to town where she was treated. The arm wasn't broken, just a nasty cut that needed a few stitches, but she was traumatized. "You're irresponsible," her husband shouted in the waiting room. "My wife could have been seriously hurt." "It was an accident," Jason tried to explain. "The snake scared the horse." "I don't care. You should have anticipated this. I'm going to sue. I'm shutting down this amateur operation." Helen, who had been called, arrived at that moment. "Everyone has insurance," she said calmly. "We'll cover all medical expenses and we'll compensate appropriately for the scare. But none of this was the boys' negligence." "I don't care. They don't know what they're doing." The man kept shouting, but Helen eventually managed to calm him down with promises of financial compensation. When they returned to the cabin, Jason was devastated. "I put someone in danger." He sat on the living room floor. "Everything we built could end because of a lawsuit." "There won't be a lawsuit," Helen assured. "I took care of it. But you need proper insurance. You can't keep operating without it." "Insurance is expensive." "It is, but it's necessary. I'll help you get it at a reasonable price." Anthony, who had been quiet until then, spoke up. "I have some money saved from the treatment. I didn't spend it all. I can help pay for the insurance." Jason looked at his father. "You don't have to." "I want to. Let me help where I can." It was a small but significant moment. The father wasn't just asking to be forgiven, he was actively participating, offering real support. In the following months, with proper insurance and even stricter safety protocols, the business continued. They had other minor scares, other challenges, but they dealt with them one by one. The mountain cabin had been completely transformed. It was no longer a place of abandonment and pain, but a real home, a thriving business, a refuge. 2 years after the day his father left, Jason was sitting on the porch, looking over the property. The stable had been expanded, now housing 6 horses. He had built a second structure to host larger groups. Ethan's garden was in full bloom and beautiful. Ethan came out with 2 cups of coffee, handing one to his brother. "What are you thinking about? How everything has changed?" "For the better. Much better." Jason smiled. "We made it, Eth, against all odds." "We made it," Ethan agreed. Anthony appeared from the stable, waving at them before heading inside to shower. Jason waved back. "Have you really forgiven him?" Ethan asked. "Yes. Not completely. Maybe never completely. But enough." Jason took a sip of his coffee. "He proved he changed. He proved he cares. That has to count for something. He saved Cole that day, and then he helped so much with everything. Yeah, he messed up badly, but he's trying to make it right, and that's more than a lot of people do." The sun was setting, painting the sky orange and pink. The horses grazed peacefully in the field. From the kitchen came the smell of food being prepared. It was peace. It was home. It was family. Imperfect, patched up, but real. End of story. So what did you think of this story of overcoming? Tell us in the comments. Do you think Jason and Ethan did the right thing by forgiving their father? Would you give a second chance? Leave your like if the story moved you and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss other amazing stories like this one. Your opinion is very important to us.